And so you have corrupt businessmen.
This video is brought to you by AccraGhana.com, a project that is dedicated to the vibrant capital city of Ghana. The Greater Accra. It is located somewhere on the west coast of Africa, at the Gulf of Guinea.
Because you see, if the populace, but Mary made reference to, alluded to the fact succinctly, that the populace feel that the electoral cycle is the only time where they can actually get a share of the national cake.
Corruption and money laundering in Ghana's real estate sector. A deep dive into Sam George's revelations. In a recent interview on Joy News, Ghanaian politician and member of parliament for Ningo Prampram, Sam Nartey George, made strong claims about the corrupt practices within Ghana's political system, especially regarding the real estate sector. His revelations touched on the deep-rooted corruption and how it extends into areas such as money laundering, a serious issue that continues to hinder the country's development.
Because the political class have created a certain gulf between ourselves and the populace. And we have arrogated to ourselves the largesse of state.
Introduction. The real estate market, often viewed as a beacon of economic growth, is, according to George, becoming a means for politicians and businessmen to engage in money laundering. His insights offer a compelling narrative about the challenges Ghana faces in its fight against corruption.
It has to trickle down for you to then get office, and then so it's an endless cycle.
One, corruption, a systemic issue. George's remarks highlight a systemic issue of corruption that has plagued Ghana for years. He explained that the political elite and corrupt businessmen have created a wide gap between themselves and the general populace, benefiting from the state's resources while leaving little for the masses. According to George, we have arrogated to ourselves the largest of state, implying that politicians have taken control of the country's resources, exploiting their positions for personal gain.
You just have to have been in Accra North to have seen.
Of course, I didn't have to be there. I saw some of the footage.
Absolutely.
And look.
2. The cycle of political corruption. The MP suggested that corruption in Ghana is cyclical. Politicians rely on businessmen with corrupt interests to fund their campaigns, and in return, these businessmen expect political favors. This cycle of dependency reinforces the corruption that is prevalent in the country, where funds meant for national development are redirected into the pockets of the few who are in power.
What a lame excuse one of these guys in the MPP was giving when they were caught on camera giving money to the people. And he said they come from a long distance and they need to give them money. I said...
3. Vote buying in action. The Asin North by-election. One of the clearest examples George cited was the footage from the Asin North by-election, where politicians were caught on camera distributing money to constituents. Although the explanation from those involved was that the money was meant to cover transportation costs, George and others see it as a clear indication of vote buying, a practice that perpetuates the cycle of corruption.
So Accra North is clear example of why money will be hoarded.
The Electoral Commission does not put your polling station far away from where you live.
4. Real estate. A front for money laundering. A particularly striking point in George's interview was his assertion that Ghana's real estate sector is now being used as a front for money laundering. The MP stated that the real estate business in Ghana is money laundering. and if authorities genuinely wanted to address the issue, they could. According to him, the current state of real estate pricing in Ghana is not justifiable by any stretch. Properties, especially in urban areas like Accra, are being sold at exorbitant prices, often exceeding $500,000 to $1 million.
So, you know something, if you look at the way the monies have been reported in the case, you then realize that what the minister apparently may be doing, and that's my own deduction, I'm not saying that that's factual.
5. The mechanism of laundering through real estate. George went on to explain the mechanism behind this laundering scheme. Dirty money is funneled into real estate. A politician or businessperson with illicit funds will invest in a property, and then another individual with similarly tainted money will purchase that property. This simple exchange cleanses the money, allowing both parties to effectively launder their funds through real estate transactions. In George's words, you also have dirty money. You come and buy the property for me, then automatically your money becomes clean.
That's the one you give in a C note. Because C note, I didn't see dollars.
Six, distortion of the real estate market. This practice creates a cycle where money that should have been invested into the country's development is instead laundered through the purchase and resale of high-priced properties. This not only distorts the real estate market, but also widens the gap between the rich and poor, further exacerbating economic inequality in the country.
Is building a storehouse for her tomorrow and her children, and then also building the one for political expediency. So there is the millions of cedis.
7. The political future. Storing wealth for generations. George also speculated on the intentions behind the illicit wealth amassed by certain politicians. He argued that some government officials are not only accumulating wealth for themselves, but also for future generations. The MP suggested that, in some cases, politicians are building a storehouse for tomorrow and their children, ensuring that their families will remain wealthy and influential for generations to come.
But then the dollars will be used to buy up a future for children. But you see, the point is,
and I understand that the real estate business is where a lot of the money
the real estate
that the politicians
business, the real estate business in Ghana is money laundering.
8. The consequences of a wealth hoarding mentality. This mindset, where politicians view public office as an opportunity for personal enrichment rather than public service, is deeply damaging to the country. It diverts attention and resources away from national development while fostering a culture of greed and impunity. As a result, the political landscape in Ghana is becoming increasingly polarized, with those in power entrenching themselves at the expense of the greater good.
If our authorities want to deal with it, they will deal with it. The cost of real estate in Ghana is not justifiable by any stretch.
Nine, what can be done to combat corruption? The revelations made by Sam George point to the urgent need for reform in Ghana's political and economic systems. One of the first steps towards addressing these issues is the enforcement of stronger regulations and oversight in the real estate sector. If, as George claims, the real estate market is a hub for money laundering, then authorities must take swift and decisive action to regulate it more effectively.
You keep seeing all these new high-rise buildings going up and they are selling them for $500,000, $1 million.
10. Regulatory reforms in the real estate sector. To combat money laundering, the government needs to introduce and enforce strict regulations on property transactions. This includes monitoring the sources of funds used to purchase real estate and holding buyers and sellers accountable for any suspicious transactions. Only through stringent oversight can the flow of dirty money into the real estate market be stemmed.
And they keep buying and buying amongst themselves. So I have dirty money to clean.
Electoral reforms to reduce corruption. Furthermore, electoral reforms are needed to reduce the influence of money in politics. The practice of vote buying, as witnessed during the Assen North by-election, must be eradicated if the country is to move forward. This can only happen if the Electoral Commission and other regulatory bodies are given the necessary resources and authority to clamp down on such practices.
I put up a real estate property. You also have dirty money. You come and buy the property from me.
12. Raising public awareness on corruption's impact. Public awareness and engagement are also crucial. The general population needs to be educated about the negative impact of corruption and the ways in which it undermines democracy and economic development. By raising awareness, civil society can play a key role in holding politicians and businessmen accountable for their actions.
Then automatically your money becomes clean. Then tomorrow you also start building your own. Then I come back and buy, and we are just cleaning the money, and we are sitting here.
13. The role of civil society in fighting corruption. Civil society organizations can advocate for transparency and good governance. They can act as watchdogs, monitoring political and business activities to expose corruption. The pressure they apply can influence policy changes and create a more accountable political environment.
Let me put you on the spot. Where do you get that?
But I've said this before on a previous engagement on your platform, that we have a what word did I use? We have a supposed fight against corruption.
14. The future of Ghana. It is time for the country's leaders to prioritize the needs of the people over personal gain. Only by doing so can Ghana hope to build a more equitable and prosperous future for all its citizens. For now, the question remains, will the authorities act on these revelations, or will the cycle of corruption continue to thrive unchecked?
And corrupt business interests.
Conclusion and reminder. Sam George's interview sheds light on the corrupt practices that have become deeply embedded in Ghana's political and economic systems. From the laundering of dirty money through real estate to the manipulation of the electoral process, the issues he highlighted are both complex and far-reaching. However, with the right reforms and a commitment to transparency and accountability, Ghana can begin to address these challenges.
That will corrupt politicians, fund them, but that money doesn't necessarily sit with politicians.
This video is brought to you by AccraGhana.com, a project that is dedicated to the vibrant capital city of Ghana. The Greater Accra. It is located somewhere on the west coast of Africa, at the Gulf of Guinea.